Meatheads, this is Travis, American Butcher. This is episode number 31. And in the past, we've done retail horror stories, and this one is going to be slaughter and processing horror stories. But to start off slow, we're going to read a couple retail ones, get warmed up, before we unleash the nightmare that people burdened us with, which is these stories. In this episode, Ryan, David, and myself talk very candidly about the slaughter industry, finding fetuses, and much more that maybe you don't want to listen to. So I just need to tell you that right off the bat. And in previous retail horror story episodes where we tried to find humor in what people sent us, some of these we can't, or we find it difficult to. That being said, there still are some hilarious parts, because all three of us are funny is something that's very funny. We're like a bunch of Billy Crystals. And this episode is also kicking off our Halloween series, hence the spooky music you're hearing. So turn on, tune in, and drop out. And here we go.
Hey, Mom. Hey, I have to read these stories, and there's a lot of swearing.
You have to read them out loud?
Good cutting enhances the quality of good meat. In his way, the meat cutter is an artist. Poor cutting results in an inferior piece of meat, regardless of quality.
Chris O'Brien says, "Hey, man. I'm driving across Australia right now, and this podcast is really awesome for driving all day. I was inspired to share a retail horror story that I thought of. I was on the opening team of a shop in Philadelphia a number of years ago. A whole animal butcher shop / restaurant was a new idea to lots of people in the neighborhood and in Philadelphia in general. So in retail, educating your customer base is a big part of your job, and in turn, the success of the shop. 2 years later, the butcher shop closed. Anyways, there was this guy we called Rasta Dude. He was in his late 30s, early 40s. Blonde, wavy Fabio hair with a goatee, always wearing board shorts and flip-flops regardless of the weather, and always high as shit. He became a regular, buying $50 worth of our jerky at a time, usually leaving about twice a week, spending around or over $100 on bacon, steak, milk, eggs, cheese, etc. We built a rapport with him by selling him usually small steaks to cook in a pan on a stovetop and getting him excited about offcuts like velvet steak, Santa Fe, etc. We constantly were trying to get him to try braising and roasting meats, telling him he could save some money by buying a big piece of meat, cooking it all day, and eating it all week. He said he had an oven but didn't know how to use it other than for drying wheat. After months of regular shopping, he started buying chicken. We sold him the whole and obviously offered to break it into pieces or debone it for customers, which we would do for him. We finally convinced him to cook it whole. We told him preheat the oven to 400, rub the olive oil, salt, black pepper all over the bird, roast it for an hour and a half, and boom, dinner. He was so fucking high that I wrote it down for him. He was excited, and so were we. It was pretty much made our day. It was like we just opened the door to a world of cooking for this weird gnome-like little weed head. We didn't see him again for over a week. He finally came in a week or so later, and we were busy, and so we didn't get to talk. A couple days later, he came in, and we were slow. He says, "Hey, man," or I said, "Hey, man, how'd the chicken come out?" He says, "Oh, man, it was horrible. Everybody at the shop pretty much stops what we're doing and gather around." "What happened?" we asked. "I don't know, man. I did what you said, 400 degrees, salt, pepper, oil, an hour and a half, and it was a fucking mess." "Oh, shit, what do you mean?" we asked. He said, "The shit's all over in my oven, man. It still smells so bad I can't even clean it." We're confused, but soon realize this fucking dingus didn't even put the bird in a pan. He never bought anything other than milk, eggs, and jerky ever again. So man, sounds like he put it right on the rack.
Yeah, that's not how you use your oven. That's how you make oven-baked pizzas. It's the same thing, right?
I guess that's true. I bet he didn't take the gizzard and the liver out or the heart out either. It probably just melted and leaked all over the bottom.
Yeah, but I'm assuming if it was one of these shops, they probably didn't have pre-stuffed gizzards.
No, yeah, I guess that's probably true. Dingus.
I was thinking he was gonna not taking it out of the plastic or the paper or something.
Yeah.
That would have been
Yeah, have you ever made like a hamburgers or a cheeseburger or grilled cheese and not taken like the Kraft singles out of the plastic? I have.
No. Whoa.
It doesn't.
Although, let's be honest, is it really different?
No, it's the same amount of chemicals.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's the same.
So, what's the biggest cooking faux pas you've had?
Well, let's see. One time I poured a saute pan and probably had about 10 fluid ounces of boiling oil on my hand one time.
Oh shit,
Ugh.
that's bad.
One time I started a pretty big fire because I was being a dingus, like this guy says.
Like a grease fire or what?
Yeah, it was a really bad grease fire. Another time I was using a Rubbermaid spatula as a plunger for a grinder, like a tabletop grinder, and I was telling the prep cook why it was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ground it.
It ground it, but it got stuck in there because the plastic, those Rubbermaid ones are really soft, and it got stuck. And so then these two guys that I worked with, Luis and Gerson, decided they were going to fix it. But I was working the line by myself. I didn't know what they were going to do to fix it. Luis built a fire in the back of the restaurant and was going to stick the metal grinder parts into it to heat up the plastic enough to melt it and pull the worm out.
Oh,
It was a really bad disaster.
yeah.
Yeah, and it didn't get fixed. It just got lit on fire.
Sorry, man.
Ugh.
That's just a few. That's just the
Yeah,
that's just the tip of the iceberg.
yeah. My brother-in-law, he ended up burning himself pretty bad. He does these big events like Outstanding in the Field, and he does cooking for like super rich people out in Jackson Hole. And he was working, like 8 hours doing prep for like a meal for like 40 people, and he's getting late, so he wanted a coffee, and he was rushing as we do when it's crunch time, and ended up spilling the cup of coffee all over his face and getting like second and third degree burns.
Christ.
Whoa.
And then his reaction to it was, he's like, I can't believe I did that on fucking Folgers.
Well,
Insult to injury.
Yeah, he's the
That's
type
funny.
of person where it's, he wants a nice cafe.
Yeah. Burns are terrible. They can be. Even in small burns. Was your hand grease burn the worst you've had?
that was the worst burn. Yeah, a lot of the skin slipped off and all that stuff. But they gave me that silver. It's like silver sulfadiazine cream, and it looks like nothing ever happened.
Like when we were kids, did you ever play that game where you just melt crayons on a hot plate?
No.
Nope.
I did. Maybe my caretakers didn't care about me.
Yeah, well, either that or they really wanted you to have a lot of fun, because that sounds fun.
Yeah, so at my preschool, we did this until a kid ran behind the table and tripped over the cord and spilt the melted wax on them.
Oh,
okay.
Man.
But that was back in the 80s and 90s when the job was just to keep the kid alive. And
Yeah. I feel like that sometimes, though, in the modern day, trying to just keep my kids alive and not burn themselves, for example.
Yeah.
That's bad. I was going to say, I've cracked a few, like, Pyrex dishes in the oven. That'd probably be the worst stuff I've done with kitchen mishaps. Putting things on burners that shouldn't be on burners, or not oven safe.
I wonder if this guy
Dishes.
cracked an egg straight onto his stovetop.
Yeah, I wonder.
So we got Michael Dunenhofer.
Hey, Mike.
Sorry if I mispronounced your last name, dude. Hey, man, I think I have a really good retail horror story. So I am a meat cutter and manager at a large natural foods grocery store. Let's just call it Small Foods.
I was going to say Together Foods.
Together Foods is Travis's. Okay, so this older woman comes in one day. She spends like 10 minutes each with 3 of the guys in my department. Not really being rude or anything, just very odd and asking lots of questions before she starts gesturing for me to come talk to her. I talked to her before, and she knew I was the manager, so I go up and ask her how she's doing. She pulls me off to the side of the case where the rest of my department cannot see. So she starts to tell me how she knows all the meat we sell isn't real meat. She proceeds to confide in me how she knew that, quote-unquote, small foods would never sell real animals because we are a moral company. She wanted me to understand how she was aware of what was going on and the facade we put up and wasn't at all trying to out us. She was under the impression that we are a vegan butcher shop that was telling the public that all the meat was from animals. I explained to her that
Are you shitting me?
I explained to her that it was real meat, slaughtered and butchered from real animals.
Wait. I hope when he said that, she just said, "I know," and then just winked. Like,
this is definitely like talking to a crazy person is what this story sounds like. Yeah. I explained to her that it was real meat, slaughtered and butchered from real animals. And after a lot of discussion about the conspiracy and how she was in on it, she was finally convinced as a few tears rolled down her face with the realization that she'd been eating animals for years. This woman had like 7 items from my counter in her cart as she told me, "Well, I guess I can kosherize the steaks, but I don't know how I would do that with the ground beef." I did not ask what that meant. But she did explain that blood was the issue. She was afraid of eating blood.
you guys don't know how to make something kosher? Just put kosher sea salt on it. You can do all the scallops and pork you want.
Do you guys say a prayer or you just sprinkle the kosher sea salt?
You say, "Dear Satan."
Okay. So she was afraid of eating blood. I've never been a slaughterman, so my knowledge is limited, but as best I could explain to her that they drain all the blood from the animals. Correct me if I'm wrong here, please.
Yeah, they do. If they didn't, it tastes gross.
Yeah. Question to both of you. What would happen if you did not bleed out the animal? This is something, like stunned it, right? So it's like brain dead, and then did not bleed it out. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Conversation ended with me finally getting a store manager and showing her some of the meat alternatives we do sell. I really want to stress that I have dealt with all manner of shitty, mean, and terrible customers. This was different. As crazy as I was, I shattered this woman's world and literally watched her cry in front of me.
I just want to know what other crazy shit she believes.
Yeah.
Like, if she thinks that there's a Machiavellian, like, conspiracy created by Whole Foods to deceive everyone in their hundreds of locations to that all their meat is vegan, she's got to believe some crazy shit.
Yeah.
I would love to hear her take on 9/11.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I'm sure it goes to a place where we couldn't even imagine.
She's got an active imagination, that's for sure.
And what if she was right?
Well, that's another thing, man.
She's the only one that knows.
Yeah.
I'm willing to believe all sorts of stuff, just because it's like, I don't know shit. At the end of the day, I was working with a guy who really believed the world was flat, and he really started telling me all the reasons why it was. And some of them were pretty convincing. But the point is, like, I'm not a scientist. I've not done the measurements. He was talking about how, like, airplane flights in the southern hemisphere and how they should be shorter if the world was actually round and they're longer. And just like, well, the verdict is out on that one. I do not know.
Wait a second. So I hear about this, like, flat Earth thing. Is it like real life trolls, or are they serious?
Well, I think they're serious, man. I think there's like a subculture of people who really believe this still. Is that what you're asking? You think it's like made up? People just
I just thought maybe it was like a fun kind of really like straight faced troll game that a lot of people in the world, like on Reddit and stuff, are like into.
Oh, and then I don't know.
Well, when you start getting into like crazy shit like that, like the flat Earth or hollowed Earth or concaved Earth, or any conspiracy or any alien stuff, they get so elaborate because the people who also believe in that believe some other version of it, but they need to be like, yeah, see, this guy believes me, and then he'll be like, yeah, I totally do, and also this crazy thing. So that it just keeps expanding and expanding, where it's like all of a sudden the person who believes in the flat Earth also is like, Well, obviously the flat earth, and the reason we don't know is because of this crazy conspiracy, and that ties into, the pyramids, and obviously the symbol of the pyramids is 9/11 and Machiavelli and New World Order.
And dinosaurs are
Yeah.
from 1,000 years ago or something.
Yeah, so like when you have these people who are looking for support, and those people who support their arguments are also fucking nuts, and then this thing just turns into a giant just snowball of just nonsense. Like if you go on YouTube and watch some of these crazy things, like the best is like people who think that like the rap community is like the modern day Illuminati. Like,
At a certain point, it's hard to sort out what is people's imaginations run wild and what actual, maybe factual possibilities there are. Is that what you're saying? Just like that snowball effect.
Yeah. Like, and if you want an example of this, I'll send you my cousin's YouTube channel. Because like when he was in high school, he recorded some pretty crazy shit in my grandparents' garage about his political opinions.
Sign me up for that.
I will. It's insane.
That lady with the vegan meat could really help our friends out in Oakland if she could convince enough people.
Yeah, she just needs to infiltrate that group of fucking losers.
Yeah, see, now we're talking. That's what we need to set them up.
At Humble Happy Butcher. This is from Instagram, and she sent me, I had a pig take 22 bullets and 2 different guns to go down. It was some serious PTSD after that. I found out the pig had a 3-inch skull and was a freak of nature.
Man,
that's
a retail horror or a slaughter horror story right there.
So we always want to dispatch animals quickly and humanely, but just like how we also want to land safely when we're in airplanes, things fail. And I have on several occasions needed to do safety shots because my first knock didn't go well. But the worst, luckily I wasn't shooting. It was USDA in front of an inspector, and the guy knocking with a 22 mag took a long shot on a steer in a 20 by 20 enclosure and missed, and it ended taking 7 shots to put it down.
Because it started moving around. Or was it?
Yeah. And when you get something like that, we could be, even before the first shot was taken, the animal was not having it. And if you're running something like that, just say next one. Like we're not.
Those were big old animals too. This is not. Those were not average steers by any means.
Yeah, and then as far as like a hog with a crazy skull like that, there's nothing you could really do to prepare yourself. And if you're out in the field, that's gonna be a fucking nightmare because like your first shot, like, and I've done this actually outside of inspection. I've shot pigs and have them not like because their brains are smaller and they scream and they run away, and then you're hunting. You have to track them. You're going to end up with the animal possibly running hot and ruining the meat. I've seen a Highlander take 5 shots in the head because it had a thick skull plate and thick hide. But how about you guys? You guys ever have a nightmare like this?
I have not. I've not been in slaughter long enough. I've seen steers get out of the handling facility, but then that was before the knock. So there was.
Yeah. I've got a story about that. An inspector that I talked to recently, he used to own a custom shop and a retail exempt shop in the front. And one time they had a bull get out of the knock box, walk through the kill floor, walk through the door, out into the retail area, a very small room, destroy the case to get out of the building, and then ended up like 3 miles away in a cemetery.
Jeez.
Knocking stuff over, and they had to take it down in the graveyard.
So, okay, So if you're going to do a long shot on an animal that's now further away from you than you want it to be, let's say you had a failed, let's say this is custom or something, you had a failed first knock and the animal's now getting away from you. are you going to take like a broadside shot, or are you going to still try to take a headshot?
I still take a headshot.
So you're just going to keep trying until you get a good headshot, basically.
Yeah. I'm going to do whatever I can to get that animal dead. If it's USDA, I'm already fucked.
Right.
If it's custom, I'm not too, well, like, yeah, the animal's suffering, but I'm going to do what I can to put it down.
Yeah. Well, what if you ever been, either of you been in a scenario where you could not get a headshot and you just had to just shoot it in the heart or something?
Not
like
me.
that? No.
Not me. Like coyotes, but.
Okay. Well, yeah. Yeah, but I've had to take a couple safety shots too, but nothing other than that. And that was all during, we were all had head restraints at that point. I've had some scary times with the wand.
With a pig wand, yeah.
I didn't at the time have a great setup. This is up at that one place where we both worked. I just couldn't quite. I feel like I'm like too big or something. There's just something about me that was awkward with the pen, and I just didn't have a great. I had a custom job one time that didn't go exactly how I wanted it to. But the new place where I'm at, we have the modified handle that puts the 45-degree PVC handle on the wand and really makes it so you can stick it and hold it really easily.
Yeah. This
one's from @Laren Epic from Instagram. My horror story. Back before I got into butchery, I was dairy farming for a medium-sized conventional farm. I was the calf manager, and one day I got a call from one of the guys up the road that a heifer had calved out early by a few weeks. I went up there to pick up the calf, and all the guys were so proud, handing me this little 40-pound Holstein preemie, about too small by half. I took her back to the barn where my boss knocked the calf with a hammer before throwing her out back to cool. Before chucking it in the deep freeze for carcass pickup that came every month or so. Anyway, I went around back a few hours later to put the calf in the freezer, and it was still alive and in a nasty state with brains and all. It was one of the times I realized good people aren't always good farmers.
That sucks.
So it was an unsuccessful knock, that animal, that it was still alive, is what you're saying.
Yeah, wow.
At the very least, you should bleed out, even if you knock with a blunt object like that.
Yeah.
Because
that would have prevented that.
Because if you bleed out, the animal is going to faint within 6 seconds of bleeding, and that's terrible. Yeah. Those are the stories that's what people think happens every other time in our fucking industry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it's the reality is like 99.999% of the knocks are pretty much perfect.
Yeah, you're allowed. Statistically one mess up out of 1,500. Womp womp.
This is from @J_Garza. I'm a USDA inspector, and I work at a small slaughter plant. Craziest thing I've seen since I've been there was a huge sow being gutted. Baby pigs fell out. Thought that was pretty crazy.
That's not that crazy.
That happens more often than one would think, probably.
Yeah. That would be crazy if the baby pigs fell out of the stomach.
Yeah, it would. Or if they ran away.
Yeah, but like,
yeah. But the first time you eviscerate something and it's got a gut full of babies, it's interesting. You want to look at it, and it makes me curious.
Yeah.
It sucks when you get, we had a guy bring in a really fat, he swore she was a heifer and didn't get bred. And then during evisceration, it was maybe a day away from being born, this calf. We thought we were going to be able to save it, but it was just been too long.
Yeah, I worked for this company down south, and we were doing a sow cleanup of these old sows that weren't being able to be bred anymore. And we killed about 10 of them that day on the farm, custom exempt. And every one of them was pregnant, and every one of them had about $20,000 worth of potential meat just spilling out.
That's a lot of money. Everyone you see.
Then because each one's about like $2,000 of added value product when you take them up to market weight, and then you sell them for a premium. And I remember like the fourth one I did, the owner's just like, could you just stop telling us?
Mm-hmm.
Because like we'd kill them in big lots, so they were all dead already.
Mm. Yeah.
It's common, you know, a lot of coal cows that that farmers know they're not going to survive through their pregnancy would I'd slaughter them, and they'd have almost very mature fetuses in them.
Mm-hmm.
Lambs, I think it was early spring we started getting them in when we're slaughtering this big lot out in Vermont from Maine, and every other one of them was pregnant, and we ended up knocking one before the bleed. We did a cesarean, raised that baby for 2 weeks, or no, it's like 3 weeks or something like that. And the guy took it home and then slaughtered it on the same floor it was born on.
It's poetic, but there are going to be people that hate that story.
Tay the Bloody Butcher. Here's the story for y'all. I was in a cooler full of hogs, and one of the ladies that worked in the front of the retail store came in. I made a pig noise and then moved the hogs quickly. She ran out screaming.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
There,
like that.
There's like a certain sense of humor, joke with each other about, right? And then sometimes it's, I got to remember, the people who do not work in the industry, they're gonna think we're sociopaths or like just not find it funny at all. You know what I'm saying?
Well, what's the hardest part about working slaughter?
Yeah, this is a perfect one. I love this one.
Yo, dick.
I love the fact that you told that to an audience full of people at one point, that joke.
I did. I told that I was doing a consulting for a restaurant on their whole butchering program, and I told that joke, and one person laughed.
Right.
Luckily, it was the head chef, and they thought it was funny. But the whole staff is like, what? No.
Yeah, I told that. Travis told me that one. Have you heard that one, David?
Uh-huh.
It was
one of my favorites.
Travis told it to me, and I told the people at my work, and these are meat cutters, they did not find it funny at all either.
No,
I couldn't believe
not
it.
even Jim?
Well, I didn't tell it to Jim. He wasn't there. But one of the other slaughtermen, I don't know if I caught him off guard with it. I don't know what it was. We did have some females present. I didn't know if the guys didn't want to laugh because females were present. But I just think it's great. And but those guys, it was like you could hear a pin drop when I said that.
So the way the joke works is, so when you say what's the hardest thing about slaughter? Most people are going to be like the lifting and stuff. And I say your dick, like an erection. So when you're sexually aroused, your penis gets hard. And in the joke's working that you're sexually aroused while you're killing animals. Do you get it?
So I probably should have kept going with it.
Yeah,
is what you're saying. You
should have beat that fucker to death.
Yeah.
That joke, not the animal. All right, David, go.
This one's from at Nick D and the Weekly Top 40 on Instagram. It said, craziest thing I've seen on slaughter, the alcoholism. I worked with a gentleman that would keep a 6-pack in his locker. Every time he went to use the washroom, he chugged a beer. Very fast, very efficient. Drunk always. We didn't have meat inspectors a few years ago, so stuff was a lot more relaxed in our neck of the woods of Canada. Yeah, a lot of booze hounds in the business. A lot
of booze and opiates.
Yeah, a lot of opiates.
I think like my first day ever working slaughter, it was November 2nd. It was winter, and it was dark in the morning. And this one guy who was the floor boss before my brother was the floor boss, knocks his first animal, goes out into the pens, and just has an 18-pack of Natty Ice. And my brother told me that thing will be empty by the end of the day.
Whoa.
And he would just, every day, just bring in that 18-pack, and just him and one other guy would just kill that fucking thing. And, That's what got them through the day. I don't know if it's just because it was low level work or entry level work, or if they, but I have seen a lot of alcoholism. I've seen a lot of opiate abuse, because sometimes, I don't know if if maybe it's a coping mechanism or not. I don't want to say that the job affects people, but certainly because of me working slaughter, I've almost lost my complete sense of empathy for people and animals. That's just me speaking.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of stress, probably a lot of wear and tear on your body. People try to, it can be a little depressing depending on your place. I think we could all say that there's been a kill floor or two that we've spent time in that's been, kind of your stereotypical dungeony type place. Just about having balance,
Yeah, that's why Temple Grandin always suggests that people rotate positions when working in slaughterhouses. That don't have one guy that only kills, because it has the potential to fuck with that guy's head. And I believe that to be true. I don't particularly like slaughter now that I have my son. Something changed in me pretty much the second he was born that made me not want to work in that side of the industry.
Yeah.
That's just me speaking. People out there may have children and may think I'm a pussy or whatever, but just something switched in my head that it's weird.
Yeah. Well, and it is always, even if you have a great job, if you can get super monotonous in a certain way. Any kind of repetitive work can be kind of soul crushing in a certain way. So I like that, where you have to rotate positions on the line. I can understand that. And then I can also see people find themselves in kind of what they've come to view as oppressive work, whether it's putting things in a package over and over again, or whether it's knocking animals. It's I could see now they're trying to numb themselves or trying to self-medicate in some way just to get through that. My inclination is always well, shit, I got to change jobs, or I got to change this. But at the same time, not everyone has that option. Sometimes you're just kind of feel like you're stuck in, for financial reasons or what have you, or social reasons, you're stuck in a certain job, which is shitty. I don't advocate for that feeling. If you're ever feeling that, it's time to change something, But yeah, I know this lady who's a neighbor of mine, she worked in a candy factory her whole career, and just destroyed her arms, and she had to have surgery after surgery. She can't. Yeah. So that's something about even just basic monotonous over and over again type of work can just screw people up mentally and physically. And then I could see alcoholism or opiate abuse just kind of getting married with that, so people can they decide they have to just get through it. So they need to self-medicate in order to get through it. Yeah. Sad situation. Yeah. But it can happen in a lot of jobs, not just slaughter.
And the thing is, with construction and slaughter and butchery, is these get use injuries. And I have a Q&A that we're going to do this in another episode, but people end up getting prescription painkillers to help with their arthritis or their carpal tunnel or their shit like that. And then that prescription goes away, or they end up needing more, or health coverage changes. And then now we're talking we're almost talking politics here, but, and then they go to the cheaper source, and which could be illegal opiates or whatever. And it could be, shitty people just being shitty. It could be good people because of the work turning towards shitty things. But if you have a problem with any substance abuse and it is affecting your work, don't be the person with the secret. Talk to someone. Just don't. There's plenty of resources out there online, and in physical form as well. Don't bear that on yourself. And if you work for a good company and a lot of health coverage is going to cover rehab and cover mental health, and just be honest and forthcoming. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, agreed.
It's true, though. People turn to street opiates because it's cheaper, and That's a sad situation, but that fills our jails. People either with physical injuries, and so they self-medicate with street narcotics, or with mental health impairment, and so they self-medicate with that. My wife works in a jail, so she has like interface with these customers or these people. It's a sad situation because they go back on the street. They still have the same mental health or physical ailments, and they still have to go figure out a way to self-medicate when they don't have good access to health care, or their doctors are not going to prescribe it for them, so they got to go to the street. But yeah, that is a little bit political. So at Bensick, comment for the podcast. One time I was just at the table cutting, and a customer rang our service bell. I answer the door, and this woman in her late 40s says, quote, "Can I get 1 ribeye instead of 3? I said, "Sorry, we only sell in bulk." She crosses her arms and looks me dead in the eyes and says, "What can I do for you that would make you want to do it?" I seriously stuttered and laughed and said, "I can't." I walked back in the meat room and just stared at the table and thought about and then he cuts out there, but that's something else. I've never had someone proposition me like that.
Must have been in a tough spot for a ribeye, huh? That's like what's going to happen after the apocalypse, like that sort of thing for ribeyes.
I'll suck your dick for some cheeseburgers.
Need some meat.
First off, what retail spot sells ribeyes in packs of 3? That's just, you don't sell stuff in odd numbers like that. That's weird.
That is weird.
Yeah.
What would you guys do for a ribeye? What would you do for a Klondike bar?
I mean, it depends on how hot she was.
Yeah, I would have just gotten awkward and just been like walked away.
I mean, I probably would have. My customer service ethic was just. My bosses didn't often. Sometimes, if it was a small shop, they didn't like this, but like, I would crack open the pack of 3 and sell her the 1. I was always inclined to do that kind of stuff
done that too.
Just
if depending what time of the day it is, honestly.
Yeah.
If it's right before closing, no. And if it's right when I got there, no. And if it's like
I would do it right before closing for a pizza.
You do it right before,
for a pizza.
Yeah.
Right before closing. Yeah.
I would have if she would have said that to me, I would have just whipped my dick out and just, there you go.
This is before you're married, right?
Yeah.
It's the old Travis.
Yeah, I'm joking. I wouldn't have done that. I still would have been awkward.
Yeah.
With my dick out.
Yeah. I was always a fan of like, just blow the customer away with some generous thing, and then now you've won a customer for life, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
harder to get a new customer than to sell an old one something else.
All right. Brad Randy. This one's once I had a beef with a broken leg come in. It was pretty crazy. I had to watch him walk and I have a couple of pics if you're interested. I've seen plenty of animals with broken legs.
Yeah.
Hey, if it's so like that brings up like a lot of custom exempt is a lot of like downer animals. You used to be able to process downer animals in America up until like the early 2000s. You want to hear more about why you can't, listen to our mad cow disease episode. We go into detail about it. A lot of people are like, I can't believe people eat that or things like that. If you don't take downers or you don't eat coal animals, then those animals are going to waste and they're going to die in vain. So that's just my opinion. I think the worst I've seen is we were receiving about 20 beef in a trailer that had a room divider, and in the front part of the trailer was lambs, and the driver, but with like a separator, like how you could section off cattle trailers.
Yeah.
So the lambs are completely separate. But the driver ended up needing to slam on the brakes, and the load shifted. And that divider came down.
Oh, no.
And so when we unloaded, this is USDA, we unloaded the beef. One of the lambs was okay. 3 of them were already dead and just crushed. And then one of them had a broken back and was trying to move with its front legs. The driver's freaking out and just like our knocker at the time only ever knocked. We only used them for beef. He never knocked a lamb. So he comes up with the 9 and shoots it like you would a beef, and it doesn't drop because their brain's in a different place. The driver's still freaking out. The guy who knocked is freaking out. I just take out my knife, stab it in the brain stem, and slit its throat.
This is through the hole that already been created?
No, this is between the atlas joint and the skull.
Okay.
And the animal dies. So as far as injured animals, I think that's the worst I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have this one quote unquote producer in the county that I'm in, and they sell their meat as like organically grown, 100% pastured, homegrown, this and that, and they actually sell their meat through like local health resources. Like there's a holistic doctor's office and chiropractic office that sells their stuff because it's supposed to be the best of the best. Anyway, they just get the nastiest stuff from the stockyard and have it slaughtered at the place where I work, and then just kind of lie to everybody. They've got a 350 person, I think, meat CSA, and not a single customer has ever gone out to their farm and wondered where the beef is. So, anyways, these jerks, I've had to condemn a bunch of, well, I haven't, the inspector has, but we have had carcasses condemned from them time and time again because they come in with broken hips and giant abscesses in joints and cancer and tuberculosis. And so, it's like go through the process, all the work and hauling the animal, and all these people have to touch this thing that ends up just going right in garbage anyways.
Yeah. The crazy thing is that person's still making money.
A shit ton of money.
Mm-hmm. Like you buy whole animals at auction like that, and you have an outlet for them. You're printing money because old dairies and things practically give those things away.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's another reason why they're printing. You can tell that they're printing money, but nobody thinks about it this way. Right? They have a promotion that says if you sign up for our meat CSA, we'll give you, it's like 5 free pounds of pastured pork bacon and a beef brisket from our grass-fed beef.
Wow.
Nobody can afford to give away product like that if they're honestly doing the work,
Yeah, because you don't have any overhead. You don't have the gear it takes to raise that animal. You just buy it for, I don't know. I haven't been to an auction in a long time. I'm guessing probably like almost 30 cents a pound when they're at that age. And I encourage our listeners to correct me, anyone who works in the auction game. I could also just call my friend John Steins, who works at an auction.
Randy Mia says they had a skinned out bear hanging in their cooler. Looked just like a small person there on a hook. And they do. They do look just like people without skin on. It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you skin all the way down to the nails and stuff and their little hands. Ugh.
Yeah. Yes. Especially with the finger and toenails.
They got those muscular arms.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to know that guy, Tom Lobsterbush. He used to have that game processing facility, and he'd tell people that came in to check it out that the bears were hogs.
Yeah, they don't.
But they don't look like hogs.
Yeah, I like calling him Tim Crustacean Shrub.
I like that. Yeah, that's good too.
We got Patrick at Patrick Does.
What up, Patrick?
What up, Patrick?
Hey, Patrick.
Saw your post about horror stories. This won't be bad compared to other stories, but it brought up a memory when I first started in the industry at a store without a number system for who was next. I called out to help the customer and a older lady who was clearly next, along with the people around her agreeing. Next thing I know, a guy yells out and says, "Hey, asshole, pay attention, I'm next." Everyone stopped and looked.
I've only had that experience happen once, and it was, I believe, like Christmas Eve, and we had a line going out the back of our store. And the confusion was we had a line for people who were just buying other shit, and then we had people waiting for their roasts to be ready.
Yeah.
And we had one POS, and So when your roast would be ready, instead of waiting in this line that was already a half hour when you've been there a half hour, we would just get you to the front. And that's when but I was next. We're all adults here, people.
Yeah. That is where I would draw the line in retail. Is like customers are not allowed to badmouth. They get a ticket out of the store if they start swearing and bad mouthing the employees. I would say you gotta have a manager that agrees with you on that.
Yeah,
I'm just not a fan of. I mean, I'm all right with customers being picky and OCD and all this stuff, but like if they start swearing, that is not allowed. That's the way I feel. Yeah. Same
thing with the butchers. If you get some guy that's totally lost, some meat cutter or butcher that's totally lost their cool, it's time to give he or she a break outside.
Yeah. Have you had to intervene on stuff like that as a boss?
I've had to remove myself from getting really impatient and totally losing my composure.
I think it's funny when people act like that, though. I find like, are you serious?
Yeah, it's weird.
So you're not inclined to get that way, Travis, sometimes? Yeah, at work, or you just...
I view work more as just like, this is happening, and regardless how I feel about it. And that, like, yes, I'm going to be stressed, but I'm going to get everything that needs to be done. What I didn't like about working retail is, I'll just be honest, the owners were just terrible, mean, nasty people that would purposely try to break people down and treated it like a fucking kitchen you would see on TV, where they would like yell at people for no fucking reason.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that either.
Yeah. And I, as much as I'll tell you that, like, if someone's doing a good job, I'm not going to tell them they're doing a good job, because in my opinion, they're just doing their fucking job. But what I'm not going to do is point out every single flaw someone makes when they're set in their ways and it's not going to change the situation. I also truly believe that if someone makes a mistake and you're not actively trying to fix the mistake, then you're a part of the problem. And yelling at that person is not going to change the past. They already feel bad enough about it. So just work with them on correcting it. That's just how I view things. And my wife could tell you, and maybe David could tell you, and Zach, who's been on the show, who I've worked with. When I work, it's just very much like, I don't get it when someone's not pulling their weight, or when something's not happening as quickly, or if I show someone how to do something. It's not that I'm mad or irritated. It's just, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I don't get aggro. I've never had to leave a situation because of that. Like, I like it again. If someone were to, like, I just think shit's funny.
Yeah.
I had to break up 2 meat cutters one time.
They were getting into it.
Were they sleeping together, awesome, and one wasn't interested in the other one anymore?
Yeah, two guys at this really small place in Seattle that I worked in. One guy had been there for like 8 years, and the other had been there for a year and was the manager, and whom is a great friend of mine. And he takes very little bullshit, and also likes to sometimes instigate people just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it escalated super quickly, to having to step outside, and they were going to fight on the sidewalk.
Yeah. So one time awesome. I was working slaughter, and our air compressor went down for the whole plant.
Oh.
So we ended up having to use a pancake one to run our vacuum sealer. And so our drop spreader was stuck in the drop position. There was no air pressure holding it up. So we had to, and we're killing lambs. So we had to slaughter lambs, bypass half of our rail by having designated people with clean coats, put these lambs on a on the trim station rail by going up ladders and stuff like that. And we had 3 trimmers.
Oh, wow.
And so like it was a fucking nightmare. And our trimmers couldn't keep up with the people doing the lambs. And one slaughterman got mad and walks over there, and there was no space because you need 2 people to hook this lamb back up on the rail from the skinning station. And he's just standing there and holding this lamb on his shoulder, holding it, and the trimmers aren't keeping up. And he just throws it on the ground and says, "When you guys are done, you can finish that one."
Whoa!
And the trimmers ended up getting into a fight with each other, not realizing that the person who did that was the real person to be mad at.
Yeah.
And I look over, words were said, and some guy, these are grown men with knives on them.
Yeah.
And there's just a fist fight happening. And people are just rolling, the lamb's still on the ground and all this shit. And then the owner of the company comes in, and right away, everyone knew who instigated it. And he saw it on like the closed feed and just kicked that guy out, and we continue working. But it was like a full-blown fight, and I'm just surprised no one got like seriously hurt, because people had knives, there's hooks everywhere. Not saying that someone would have stabbed somebody, but a kill floor is certainly not a place I want to be tussling on the ground with somebody.
Yeah, falling on a knife is a concern. It's like working on a mobile truck, everything's slippery and going in and out of the truck. Yeah. It's kind of open conversation like that. If you fall, the danger is falling onto one of your knives. Those things can fly out of the scabbard very easily. Yeah. So, and I would think the same exact thing if guys are rolling around with a scabbard full of knives.
Yeah, that's why when if you're not using your knife, it should be in your scabbard for everyone's safety. Also, when you're walking in a processing facility or even on a kill floor, I do like little, almost like, I don't like shuffle my feet, but I don't like take giant steps and things like that.
There's definitely a certain walk that I remember when I was first working in a cut shop, seeing the older guys walk this certain way. Now it's just like have it. You just
it's like mostly on your heels, where the heels on your shoes wear out pretty quick.
When I was younger, it was very easy. I would very easily get into yelling matches with my coworkers if people were fucking with me. There's a lot of tension I remember experiencing among guys who are unskilled because they're trying to learn the skill, and there's a lot of seniority and there's a lot of power moves that goes on. And if people fuck with you, and then just get into yelling matches. And especially when I was even younger than that, I was very quick to throw a punch. So like I had no problem just like getting right in people's faces. I can say that did not work out well for me. And I've adapted my strategies these days. I've gotten older is like, I do not get in yelling matches at work. That is a line. If someone fucks with me now, the strategy I use is like, I ask them, come talk to me for a minute. And I keep my voice super calm. I step outside of the room and I have like a very clear, succinct, calm conversation with them along the lines of, do not do that ever again. Something like that, And then I create a paper trail around it right away. I send an email to HR and to my management just being like, incident report, this is what happened, this is what was said, just to curtail any sort of interpretation of the situation that might happen, where someone might say, oh, Ryan got aggressive with me. I can be like, no, this is what happened, this is what I said, and vice versa. And then it also creates like a consequence for that person where they know if they do it again, I'm going to go to HR and management again. And there's already been a paper trail created around it. And that's much more effective for me.
Yeah, all incidences, like I've rarely had personal problems where where I'll need to report something, but it's mostly because I had a shipping and receiving person, and I said the comment that, I'm going to shadow you on this day so we can figure out how to streamline some processes. And he got super defensive and it's like, what, you don't think I'm doing my job correctly? And I was like, no, I just think that the way I work and with lean manufacturing, all this, that you could be doing it better. Or I'm sure there's things that you're not seeing. And then he just kept priding it. And what I said, I don't think was was bad at all. It's just like, hey, our company's going to grow, and we need to find ways to make you do more work with the same amount of labor. And then just keep pressing it. And then I finally was like, yes, I do think you're slow. I think, do you want me to say it? I think I could honestly do your job twice as fast. And I think you're inappropriately slow and lazy. I catch you on your phone all the fucking time. I didn't say F word, but like, and then it just like, is that what you wanted to hear? Like, and then I had to report that incident. I was just like, this person got defensive when I did this. But if anyone were to like actually like try to threaten me or try to man up to me, I probably wouldn't do anything. And then just years later, I'd probably just, burn their house down.
Yeah.
It'd be a shame if I wasn't around. There would be no one to protect you.
This next one's from Gerard M from Instagram. It says, it's a cool butcher story. I've been cutting fish professionally for some time. During that time, I've seen all kinds of gross little creatures. But this one time, it was a red snapper that was a little on the fat side. I thought it was bloated. After cutting the stomach open, another red snapper slid out. Observing further that the second snapper also had a fat stomach, the group that gathered then talked me into cutting that open, and when I cut the second snapper open, an 18-inch needlefish slid right out of it. Oh, it's like those Russian dolls.
Needlefish.
And needlefish. This guy works in Pike's place.
Really?
Yeah. I know my brother once was fishing and he caught a rockfish, a lingcod bit onto it when he was weaning.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Man, at Gerard M, that's got to be tough down there.
Oh,
all those tourists. I've been to Pike Place Market many, many, many times. My ex-girlfriend worked at a bakery there, and so just, man, it's like The Walking Dead when they first go to Atlanta.
Yeah. I just want to know, like, when you work in a place like that, when you work at a Pike's Market and you see them throw the fish and you see all this shit and you see those butcher shops, for as many people that are there, they're all tourists. So are they busy? Like, I could understand a bakery being busy, but I don't understand a place that would sell produce or proteins in the sense where you have to take it someplace to cook it. Because
I wonder how many like hotel refrigerators have fish left in them.
Yeah, because like I know Zach worked down there at a butcher shop.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, friend of the show, his company he worked for is no longer there.
Oh, they closed, huh?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
So, yeah, I've always been curious about that.
Listen, a couple of the women that I used to know that worked down there told me that the fish guys were sleazy. So I'd like to hear back from our friend at Gerard M.
I can imagine it.
Sleazy? Yeah.
Well, not him specifically, but if you're single and you're throwing the fish and you have tons of people taking pictures of you.
You're a chick magnet.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily like you're going to play it up. You're going to take on this personality like, check this shit out. Yeah.
Well, I imagine the lady fishmongers do quite well for themselves as well. I'd be into that. It would pique my interest, I think.
What, if you saw more women in the fishmongering game?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why.
Female fishermen are hot. Oh, yeah. Mike Anderson writes in, how about a goat that stood up in the kill floor? Or the time a cow broke its way free onto the main highway. 3 of us are out there in our bonks, coats, knives on. I'm not familiar with that word, bonks, B-O-N-K-S.
I don't know. It's European.
Okay. 3 of us are out there in our bonks, coats, knives on, trying to get it back into the parking lot when the owner runs out. The owner runs out there with a 30-30, shoots it, jumps in his truck, wraps the winch cable around it, and drags it back into the parking lot, tire smoking the whole way.
Yeah. I've said it in a previous episode. I've taken long shots on freeways for lands and stuff.
Wait, so it's the owner of the business shoots it as opposed to the owner of the animal, right? I was trying to think of why would the owner of the animal be there. But now I get it. Okay, so the owner jumped out, took care of it.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I like seeing owners get after stuff.
I like seeing owners that know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are not a lot of those around.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have said that. That's not true at all. There's a ton of really great business owners around there, especially in this trade. I'm sure that was a dumb thing to say. Mm-hmm. This next one from Matthew Penzino says a trailer load of hogs was rear-ended by a semi-truck on the way to the plant. What a mess. That's nasty. I've heard of that before, something like that. Travis, there was a cattle trailer that flipped on I-5.
Ugh.
Kind of by us one time, and I was up volunteering at this compost facility up in Stanwood that now takes the majority of Seattle's composting. Mm-hmm. And apparently, I don't know who it was, if it was Department of Transportation or who it was, contacted them. It was 30 head, and they asked them if they could do anything with the carcasses. And from what this guy said, they brought all 30 head to this facility, composted it in piles that were already hot, and within 30 or 40 days, all that was left were the larger bones. That's what he said. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Microbes.
At T-Bone Ranch, I saw a guy working next to me open up his chest while changing the blade on a hog splitter.
Whoa.
Helped him together while the paramedics arrived. Was almost the craziest thing I've seen.
Mm.
Whoa. That sounds awful.
Yeah. So I was working with this inspector down in San Diego, and he told me the craziest shit he saw was, so down in Vernon, California, there used to be it's a industry town. And if you've ever seen True Detective, that's what season 2, that's what they model Vinci after, is Vernon. And there's huge slaughterhouses, all the train cars connect there in that part of Los Angeles. And there's probably I think it was 39 slaughterhouses at one point, and the rest meat packing and all cold storage. And there's rendering plants there. And that's where I bought my hide rug. I just bought it wholesale, went to a plant. And the inspector that's their circuit. And if you live in California and you want to be a USDA, you're most likely going to work down there for your first 2 years. And they came to work in the cleaner. This was back in the 90s, cleaning an industrial grinder that ended up turning on. And what stopped the grinder was his hip bone.
What?
Yeah, because the rest of him.
How do these grinders just freaking turn on?
I don't know, but now there's lockout, tagout procedures for all that stuff.
Yeah. Something like that. I see.
But there's still, it still somehow happens. I can think of 2 stories of that happened within the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't do their lockout, tagout.
I don't know. We all know that sometimes when you clean a machine, that you run it while you're spraying it with water to help clean it. It could have been a situation like that. But
man, oh man, oh man.
Yeah, so the front of him got ground first, and then paramedics called the inspectors and were like, well, you guys see this gross shit all the time. Could you help us? Get this guy out? And the inspector's like, no. And then the next day, that machine was in operation. It passed its pre-op. For our listeners at home, these are huge industrial vat grinders that have hoppers that hold 1,000 pounds or
completely
2,000.
and totally irreversible.
Yeah. That
damage.
They usually go from one grinder straight into another grinder. Yeah. That's that. What would you do, David?
Oh. Take a selfie with the corpse. And I don't know. That's the first thing I'd do.
Strong man dive to ride.
All right, that was episode 31, Slaughter and Processing Horror Stories, special edition for the month of October. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you have a story, or if you have suggestions for a future show, or want us to actually talk about meat and cuts, you can contact us at themeatblockpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at themeatblockpod, or Instagram at themeatblock. And we also have a Facebook group, The Meat Block, and I'm always on there, David's always on there, and so is Ryan. So if you leave a comment or join the conversation or join the group, we will read it. In the way we get material for the show or ideas for episodes is from you, the listener. So we would appreciate it if you head to those platforms and just let us know what you think and be a part of the conversation we're having. And if you want to get a hold of us individually, Ryan is at Gather and Break on Instagram, David is at A Farm Butcher on Instagram, and I'm at American Butcher on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to be awesome, the best way to do that is search The Meat Block in the Apple Podcast app or iTunes app. Leave a 5-star review and please leave a comment. New comments and reviews push us up further on the list, even though I'm pretty sure we're the #1 butcher podcast, but we want to be ranked overall better, maybe in the food category or whatever. So if you did that, it would be greatly appreciated. Next week's episode I am very excited about, so I hope you will enjoy it as much as I did mixing it and recording it. It's a fun one for Halloween week. Our intro was from Season of the Witch, which is a film many people know as Halloween 3 from John Carpenter. It is a terrible movie. Just be lucky I didn't play the Silver Shamrock commercial. And our outro is Charlie Daniels' Woolly Swamp. And until next time, keep your knife sharp and live in the margin. And it being October, maybe don't keep all your fingers. Live a little.